thing going. Welcome to the Lower Body Fix Masterclass. And we've got TikTok is live now. YouTube live. Okay, hey, all right. Welcome everybody to the Lower Body Fix Masterclass. This is a live class where I'm gonna go over all of the movements that you need to hopefully feel significantly better in your body. Since this is a live event, I wanna just give everybody just a second here to log on since we just went live right now. Like I said, we're gonna go over everything I know about how to strengthen the foot, the ankle, the knee, the hip, and the lower back. And my hope is that you walk away from this event with at least a few things that are going to help you feel significantly better in your body. So just give us one more second for all the people to join. Like I said, this is an actual live event. We're here, it's 5 p.m. Pacific on the 23rd, and we're talking to you live from our beautiful set here at WeShape. So in about 30 seconds, we're gonna get started, okay? All right. Are you guys excited? If you're excited, give us a little heart, give us a like. If you have a friend who you know has some aches and pains in their lower body, you can share this feed with them. Our goal is to get as many people on here as possible because this is going to be a jam-packed event. Again, where I'm going to go over, I think, at least 15 or so movements, okay? So let's do this. Let's dive in. So this is the official start right now. So welcome to the live Lower Body Fix Masterclass. My name is Coach Tyler. I am the head coach and co-founder of a company called WeShape. Now, if you've never heard of us before, WeShape's goal is to change how and why we work out. It's to help you feel better in your body and about your body. And so let me just do a little backtrack on why this is really important. You see, we believe that the fitness industry is failing us, okay? The reality is that most workout programs focus only on pumping your muscles and using energy so you can either burn calories or shape your body, right? The industry is focused on using how you look as the goalpost to how fit you are. And really the reality of it is that most of us just need to learn how to move our bodies better so that we feel better in our bodies. And on top of that, if I had to go one step deeper on this, the fitness industry actually uses shame and self-judgment to motivate us to take action. Let me explain that real quick. Almost everybody here has probably walked past a mirror, looked in that mirror, and judged themselves. Ooh, you're gross and you should do this, and thought to themselves, I should go do a workout, right? So what are we doing? We're using fear and self-judgment to motivate us to do a workout routine so that we can change how we look so we can receive validation from the outside of ourselves. And that's not what we're about at WeShape. At WeShape, we're about teaching people how to move their bodies the way it was meant to. Because when you move your body better, you feel better in your body. And we're here to teach you how to show up for your workouts as an act of self-care rather than as an act of self-judgment. Okay? What that means is you show up to go brush your teeth, right? Because you want to keep your teeth clean and healthy and have them as long as possible. But then you go show up for your workout because you hate how you look. You should show up for your workout because you want to take care of yourself. All right? So today, we're going to do just that. I'm going to show you movements that you can do to take care of yourself, to help your body feel better, to restore your strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination in your lower body, and hopefully make you stronger, give you more flexibility, and hopefully reduce or even eliminate some of the aches, pains, and injuries that you may have. Now, before we dive in, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the feet, then we're going to go to the ankles, then we're going to go to the knees, then we're going to go to the hips, and then we're going to go to the lower back and the core. And over this course of this night, I'm going to put this together, and I'm going to start showing you how this progresses into some movements that you can do from home to feel significantly better in your body. Now, I do want to say one more thing before we get started, and that is I am not your doctor. I am not a medical professional who is prescribing this to you. So this is information that we're sharing to you in hopes that you could try it out and you'll feel better in your body, but please be smart about this. If you guys have physical restrictions or limitations that we don't know about, don't just jump in and do all the movements that we're telling you to do and end up getting hurt, right? Listen to your body. It's so important to listen to your body. It's the most important thing. So if you're doing a movement and it hurts, pause, don't do it. But instead, go back and start to find where the movement started to feel uncomfortable. The point of what we do at WeShape is helping you connect with your body. It's not about mindless exercise. We're not watching Oprah on the treadmill while we're slowly grinding our knee down because we have bad movement. Instead, we're teaching how to connect with your body and move your body better so you feel better in your body. I'm gonna say that a lot tonight, okay? Last part of this is, why should you trust me, right? Why should you trust me? Why should you listen to me at all? So I am not a classically trained physical therapist or anything of the sort, but what I am is a guy who had a very, very interesting history on injuries, okay? So when I was 17 years old, I finally had started working out in the gym, and I was trying to do, the typical routines, pumping my muscles and burning calories so I could change the way I look, and I got hit by a car. And I broke my femur, and I tore some cartilage in my knee, and I had to sit in a wheelchair for several months. And when I came back to the gym, all the movements that I was previously doing at the gym, they hurt. They didn't feel good. And it turns out that when you just do movements like leg extensions or you do squats and you don't know how to do them properly, well, guess what? They hurt your body. So not all exercise is created equal. That's why at WeShape, you'll hear me say the word movements a lot and not exercise. Exercise is mindless. Movements are mindful. So make sure you stay connected with your body. Now, after that injury, I was able to completely rehabilitate myself, building strength, flexibility in that knee that most doctors didn't think that I could get. And I did that because I traveled around the world learning from some of the top physical therapists and athletic trainers in the world who are people who teach high-level athletes how to rehabilitate their bodies and build strength and flexibility to do amazing things with their bodies like most people do when they're professional athletes. And you know what? That was fantastic. But from there, about a decade later, I ended up getting injured significantly again on my right knee. This time, I was doing gymnastics. I tore my ACL, LCL, MCL, quad, and meniscus all in one shot. And this was a 10-year journey of learning how to rehabilitate my knee, learning how to activate the right muscles, learning how to move properly so that I could minimize the pain and maximize my strength and flexibility in that side of my body. And again, I'm super happy to say that with a lot of effort, I was able to turn that around. And so if you're watching this right now and you're struggling, maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I have aches and pains in my lower body somewhere and I really want them to go away, know that this can change. And the real key to change is consistency. So here's how to use the movements in this live. I don't expect you to walk away from this with 15 or 20 different movements and you're going to do every single one of these movements every single day. That is a recipe for disaster. Instead, what I want you to do is watch this live. Watch the whole thing from start to finish, going over the foot, ankle, knee, hip, and lower back. And pick the 1 to 3 movements that you think are going to make the biggest impact on you feeling good in your body. That's it, 1 to 3. And if you do those 1 to 3 movements consistently for just a few weeks, you will get so much further than if you try to do everything that we talk about today and then end up falling apart, forgetting about it, not doing it, right? People always do too much too fast. So do a little bit less, show up from that place of self-care, and do it consistently. And when you do that, it will change your body, okay? You will feel so much better, all right? So give us some likes, give us some hearts if you guys are watching live. Let us know if you guys are excited about this. We're going to be jam-packed starting right now, and we're going to go through this all the way through the entire thing. And make sure you stick around to the end because I got a cool way for you guys to implement some of these movements, make them even easier in your life, okay? So first, we're going to talk about the foot, you guys. The foot is one of the most important things that you can focus on in your body. So if you have pain in your foot, if you have pain in your ankles, your knees, your hips, your lower back, one of the most important things is to start with the foot because what you're doing with your foot on the ground can affect everything upward from there. So we're going to go over a couple things on the foot. We're going to talk about making sure your toes have flexibility. We're going to talk about activating your arches to make sure your feet become the springs they're supposed to be. And then we're going to talk about bringing healing blood flow to your feet if you need to when you have aches and pains in your feet or if your feet just don't have the type of strength that they used to. We can create more flexibility and bring healing blood flow with a move I'm going to show you. So let's get started with that, okay? The first thing we're going to focus on is flexibility in your toes, okay? So a lot of people over time, they wear shoes and their toes start to overlap on top of each other like this, right? We end up with bunions and corns and inflexibility in our toes. It ends up causing aches and pains, okay? Now, yes, we should be getting shoes with wider toe boxes to create more space, but one of the things we can do every single day is we can stretch our toes. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first, we can take each individual toe and we can pull it up to stretch it, the extension of the toe, and down to stretch the flexion of the toe. So just doing this once a night, pulling up on the toe and down on each toe as you go through your foot is one of the best ways just to get a little bit extra mobility in the toes, all right? So this is something that's fantastic. If you have toes that are overlapped on top of each other and you want your feet to wake back up and do what they're supposed to do, which is support your whole body without aches and pains, then this is a great movement for you. So all I gotta do is stretch them up, 5 seconds up, 5 seconds down on every toe on each side. Now from there, if your toes are really cramped together like this from years of wearing shoes, you can start to spread them out like this. Now my favorite way to do this is this. You take a finger and you put it between the pinky and the next toe. Then you take another finger and you see if you can put it between the next toe. Then you take another finger and you put it between the next toe. And another finger, put it between the next toe. What you'll find is at some point it gets real hard because your toes aren't very flexible. But if you can do this and you can sit with your leg crossed over your lap like this and hold this toe spacing for 10 minutes at night while you're watching a show, while you're flipping through your phone on each side, stability in the foot, and when we create that space inside the foot, it allows the foot to function the way it was supposed to function, okay? Another thing that's really cool, you can go on Amazon, you can order these toe spacers right here. This is what you would get if you had a pedicure, right? And you could literally just take this toe spacer like you're getting a pedicure, stuff it between your toes, hold on to those things like this, right? And then just sit back and relax. You can do that on both feet, and these things are super duper cheap. One of my favorite ways to stretch the toes is by just putting a toe spacer between the toes, okay? So if you guys need to stretch your toes out, if they're clumped together, make sure you do that every night. Stretching the toes up, stretching the toes down, and stretching the toes sideways. Now this next step is really important. This is gonna be something that a lot of people probably suffer with, and that is flat feet, inactive arches, or weak feet, okay? The feet are supposed to be our springs, everybody. So when we jump, the foot's supposed to come off the ground, and when we come back down, we land. The arch is gonna be able to catch the foot as the foot comes back down. If we don't have strength in our arches, then the foot doesn't become a spring anymore. And then all of a sudden, everything is higher impact, okay? That means that our walking starts to hurt more. That means, you know, going downstairs starts to hurt more. God forbid we can run or jump again, especially if we lose that arch in our feet. So it's really important to start working on activating the arches. So I'm gonna show you my favorite drill right now on how to activate the arches using a piece of paper, okay? So here's how it's gonna look. You're gonna take a piece of paper and you're gonna put it on the ground, ideally on like a piece of like linoleum or some hardwood floor, something that's kind of slippery. I'm gonna try to do it here. This is a little bit grippy, so I'm gonna do my best to show you this visual feedback right here. But what I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna put my foot down on this piece of paper, okay? Nice and flat. Now from there, I'm gonna lift my toes toward the sky, and what I'm gonna try to do is scrunch the paper. Do you see how this paper's lifted off the ground? See, it's kind of hard to see, but I can stick my finger underneath the paper right there. I'm trying to create a scrunch in the paper by using my arches, right? Now from there, I'm gonna put my other toes down, all the toes down, and I'm gonna grip the ground with the toes while maintaining the ball of my foot on the ground. And I'm just gonna pause there for a second, and then I'm gonna relax and do it again. So what we're practicing is, how do I go from a flat foot, where my foot's down like this, I don't have a lot of arch support, right? To, how do I activate my arches by pulling that piece of paper towards your foot. See, again, it's kind of a slippery surface right here. And then putting the toes down, gripping the ground with the toes, and then relaxing, okay? And so every night, if we have trouble with our arches, you can keep that piece of paper next to you. You can put it down on the ground, and you can say, I'm gonna do this 10 times on my right side and 10 times on my left side. Putting that foot down again, nice flat foot, and then we're gonna scrunch that paper as much as we can until we ideally can get a finger underneath it, right? And then we're gonna put the toes down, spread them wide, and grip the ground. By doing this, we're building a really solid mind-muscle connection with the arches of our feet. And this is gonna come in handy here in just a sec when we start to bring the foot and the ankle together in a movement that I'm gonna show you. That's my favorite for getting the feet to do their job, which is wake up and give you balance and stability in the foot, ankle, knee, hip, and lower back all at the same time, okay? So those are the start of the feet here. Let's see here, one more, I got the blood flow, okay? One more for the blood flow. So this one's kind of fun. You're gonna need a little bit of lotion and a spoon, all right? Pretty simple. It's not that much of a rocket science move, and you don't need to have all this stuff here that's like fancy. Instead, we're just gonna put a little bit of lotion on the back of the spoon here, and we're gonna just rub that lotion onto the arch of the feet, right? And then we're gonna turn the spoon on its side like this, and you're just gonna scrape up the arches like this. And you'll feel a little bit of crunchy tissue there, and we'll scrape it back down a little bit over, and we're just gonna continue that motion across the foot. So if you have a little bit of discomfort in this area, that's a little bit fine, but we're just trying to get blood flow to this area. And scraping the foot like this can create a lot of blood flow to the area and can also create flexibility in the fascial tissue. If you have issues with your heel, you can do it on your heel too, but I'd like to use the two hands when we're doing on the heel. So you're scraping a little bit more with a little bit more intensity because the heel's a little bit thicker. But by doing this across the arches, we can bring blood flow to the feet, and that's a really great way to start doing rehabilitation of the feet, especially if we have plantar fasciitis. The one thing that I really want to say about this though is, try this out, and if you do it and it causes more pain afterwards, then this wasn't the right move for you. For some people, this can agitate the tissue. For others, this can bring healing blood flow and create mobility in the tissue that actually feels really good. So again, listen to your body, be smart about it, okay? So this is starting with the feet. The most important things is to regain that flexibility in the toes, regain the ability to fire your arches properly, and then making sure we understand how to bring blood flow back to the feet. Remember, your feet carry you for your entire life, so be kind to them, right? If you have a partner, you can ask them to do massage trades on the feet. You can do you can do self-massage on your feet too. Treat your feet really nicely, because if you do, they will carry you, and they'll hurt a lot less, and they'll feel significantly better. They'll be able to do a lot more for you in the long run, okay? So we're going to come back to the movement that I'm going to put this together with after I show you these ankle drills, okay? Because oftentimes when we have aches and pains in our feet, we also have tightness in our ankles. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you my favorite stretches for the ankle. And I'm going to show you some criteria that you can use to determine whether or not this is the stretch for you, okay? Most people only really focus on this first stretch, which is being able to bring their knee over their toes, stretching the calf like this. I'm going to show you my favorite way to do this stretch, and I'm going to show you this criteria right now to help you out. So what we're going to do is come into a kneeling position, and what I want you to do is make sure you're kneeling on a pillow behind you like this. You can follow along at home too if you want to make sure that you're understanding this drill. And then from there, what you're going to do is this. You're going to come forward with your heel glued to the ground. If your heel comes up, stop, go backwards, glue that heel down. And what we're going to do is bring the knee forward over the toes. Now, at the end, you want to just imagine dropping a line down from your knee in front of your toes. If you're dropping that line from your knee down in front of your toes, your heel's still down, right? And it's less than 4 inches, okay, which is about the width of a fist, okay? If it's less than the width of a fist, then your ankles are tight and you could be susceptible to injury. And what we need to do is work on creating flexibility in those ankles. For a lot of people, we hold a lot of tension in our ankles. And so this is a great mobility drill I'm going to show you right now to help rebuild the flexibility in your ankles. So you can stay in this position, and what we're going to do is this. Bring that foot a little bit more forward, keep the heel glued to the ground, and then you're going to put your hands on top of your knee like this, and you're going to push your hands into your knee as you bring your knee forward. Now this is a great movement because you can stretch the hip flexor of the back leg while stretching the ankle of the front leg. And the width that you bring your knee and your foot apart, play around with it. Feel what feels most comfortable. Remember that we're not targeting the hip flexor right now, we're targeting the ankle. So if it feels more comfortable for you to bring your foot back like this because you have real tight hip flexors, that's totally fine, okay? So again, just pushing with your hands a little more forward like this. And don't worry, if your knee hurts in this position, I'm gonna get to that in just a sec, all right? But bringing your knee over your toes like this and trying to create that ankle flexibility is gonna be really important. What you should feel is a stretch through the backside of your Achilles tendon in your calf. This is really useful ankle mobility because this is something that we do in our daily life when we go downstairs, upstairs, when we run, when we walk, when we jump. Being able to come through the ankle like this is really critical, okay? So if you're doing this stretch, you can do the stretch every single day for anywhere between 60 to 90 seconds per side. And I always recommend, like I said in the beginning, don't pick like 15 things to do. Pick the one thing. So if you don't have the flexibility in your ankle to go forward like this, if you don't have the arches, start at the feet and work your way up, okay? It's really important to start at the feet and work your way up. Now, over time, you'll gain the flexibility to get 4 inches past your knee, and you'll know you have enough flexibility in your ankle to do pretty much everything you need to do in your daily life. If for any reason, by the way, you can't do this kneeling, I'm going to show you a different variation real quick just to make it a little easier on you. Just bring your foot underneath your body like this in a chair, right? And all you're going to do is bring your knee forward this way, okay? So if you imagine just sitting in a chair like this, and you just bring your body to the edge of the chair, and then you stretch your ankle that way. If you need to, you can push down on the knee like this, or you can even lean over and push down on the calf to keep that heel glued down. That's a way to do it without kneeling on the knee, okay? So this is a great ankle stretch, but oftentimes it's the only ankle stretch that people do. They only bring their heel to the ground and stretch their calf. So now I'm going to show you 3 other stretches that are super valuable to building strong and flexible ankles. This is really, really important if you have a tendency to roll your ankles, okay? So I'm going to show you the first movement. This is called a toe knuckle stretch. I'm going to show you standing, but you can do this sitting as well to make it a lot easier, okay? So what you're going to do is this. You can use a chair for support. You don't have to do this standing like me. Again, you can do it sitting. You're going to come up on the knuckles of your toes, and you're focused on bringing your foot straight forward. So don't let your foot drop to the outside like this, right? We're not trying to drop it to the outside like this. The foot should be going straight forward. From there, you can even bring your foot back if that gives you a better stretch. You're just going to bend the knee a little bit until you feel a big stretch coming all the way through the top front side of the ankle. And right there, we're just going to do the same thing as before. Just a little bit of movement forward and a little bit of movement backwards. And this one movement right here can unlock tight ankles like you wouldn't believe. Another thing too is we hold a lot of tension in our ankles. And when you do this movement, you might feel things come up. You might feel emotions come up. You might feel nausea. You might feel something like that. That's actually normal because we hold so much tension inside the ankles. I've seen it happen a lot of times, so don't be afraid if that's happening to you when you're doing the stretch. Again, like all the stretches in this video, you can do them for 60 to 90 seconds every single day. And sometimes if you feel like it, twice a day is even more beneficial. If you do less stretches more frequently, you will make more progress than if you do more stretches less frequently. So pick 2 or 3 things, do them every day for a few weeks, and then come back to this video later and pick some other things, okay? So this is a great one if you have tight ankles in that direction, right? A lot of people do, they don't even know it, but doing toe knuckle stretch, making sure you do both sides like this, absolutely amazing for the ankles. Now the next one is this. This one is really common for people with knee pain, is the inability to adduct their ankle like this, okay? So what I'm saying is this. Put your foot flat on the ground, and then imagine dragging your foot to the side like this until you feel a stretch on the inside of your ankle right here. Now this shouldn't hurt your knee, so make sure you don't go too far. What we're doing is just dragging the ankle inward. The majority of my weight's here, and again, we can do all of these ankle stretches in a seated position to deload the ankle more. And I highly recommend you do whatever variation feels easier for you than you think you need to do, okay? And this same thing, just coming in and out a little bit for 60 to 90 seconds, creating that mobility in the ankle that hopefully will protect the knee, the hip, and the lower back if we ever end up in a situation where we're walking on unstable surface, we're not paying attention to what we're doing. This is a fantastic move for giving you that type of flexibility and strength, okay? Now, if you've done this ankle stretch where we're adducting the ankle and coming to the inside, now we want to do the opposite, where we're going to abduct the ankle and come to the outside. So this one is the opposite. We're going to have our foot flat, and we're going to roll it to the pinky toe side. This is your most common ankle strain that people get. They're walking, their ankle rolls to the side, boom, they tear a ligament, something happens in their ankle. So either you have tight ankles and you're prone to this, or you have weak, flexible ankles and you're prone to this. And this isn't just a stretch. This is a move that strengthens and stretches at the same time. So it looks like this. You're going to roll to the outside, and then as you come back, you're going to imagine turning your foot like this. You're going to rotate your foot outside. So I'm not just stretching and then standing back up. I'm stretching, and then I'm pushing my body back up by rotating my foot back flat. And I'm going to come back and forth like this. So you're building strength in the ankles and flexibility in the ankles at the same time. And this is really important because eventually you can get up to the point where you can stand on the sides of your ankles, you can squat on the sides of your ankles, and the risk of you having an ankle injury when you've built that kind of resiliency is incredibly low. And plus, when we loosen up our ankles, it loosens up the freedom for our knees to have more play because our ankles are taking the brunt of that lateral movement and not the knees taking the brunt of the lateral movement, okay? So, those are my favorite stretches for the ankles. If you guys have tight ankles, you could do all 4 of those stretches, doing the one where you bring your knee over your toes, doing the toe knuckle stretch, doing the adduction stretch and the abduction stretch, right? If you want to remember that, by the way, add means like add together, bring everything together. Abduct, move apart. So think of the add one first. And then the last one I want to do here is strengthening your ankles, okay? So one of the things that very few people do is actually focus on strengthening their ankles because they think they have to have machines and all these other equipment or they have to go for a run. But I tell you, the best thing you can do to strengthen your ankles is a simple move that I'm going to show you right now. It's called the calf rocks. So it looks like this. I'm going to sit at the edge of my chair, and this is like a beginner variation. And all I'm going to do is this. I'm going to lift my toes to my nose till I feel the muscles on the front sides of my shins working. Then I'm going to drive the balls of my feet into the ground, and I'm going to come up as high as I possibly can until I feel my calves working on the back sides of my lower legs, okay? And I'm just going to rock back and forth. Toes to nose, fire those muscles, calves poking those toes down towards the ground, and just go back and forth like this, all right? Back and forth like this, slow and controlled, trying to really get that pump in those lower legs. Now, this is a fantastic one for building strength and flexibility in your ankles and your feet at the same time. And so if you have weak ankles, then I highly recommend that you do this movement every single day. And I'm just going to say this now, all these movements you can pretty much do every single day for 60 to 90 seconds and do them at least once a day consistently. That's how we want to see you guys get the most from watching the Lower Body Fix Masterclass, okay? By picking a few things and just doing them consistently. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, if you guys are watching live right now and you do have questions, post them in the comments down below. We are going to have a Q&A section at the end of this video. I'll make sure that we go over any of the questions you guys have about any of the movements I'm showing throughout this video, okay? So, now that we've gone through the feet, we focused on stretching the toes, activating the arches, and doing foot self-care when we're starting to learn how to use our feet again. We've gone through the ankle stretches, right? The lateral ankle stretches, the knees over toes ankle stretch, and the toe knuckle stretches, which are going to loosen up the ankles. And then this movement, the calf rocks, right? Which, by the way, you can start seated. And if that's too easy for you, you can do it for 90 seconds. Then we can move to standing, right? Which is even harder. And then if that gets too easy for you, then we can reduce the time, usually to 30 seconds. You can use something for balance, and we could do single leg calf rocks. and then do that for the same amount of time on the right side as the left side, okay? So that's a great progression for you to take you from something that most people can do very easily to something that's significantly harder and that will strengthen your ankles more than just about anybody out there, okay? Now, while I'm standing, I do want to put this together. So you're going to have these moments in this live class where I'm going to call it bringing it together, okay? Because right now we've focused on the toes, and the purpose of stretching the toes is so that we can spread our toes out and the toes can do their job, which is creating balance and control in the foot. Then we've worked on the arches, right? Now that we have the arch, then we work on the ankle strength, the stability, going side to side, front to back, right? And now to put this all together, one of my favorite drills to wake up your feet and your ankles and to actually benefit your knees and your hips and your lower back as well is to do a single leg balance drill. So I'm gonna walk you through that real quick, and I'm gonna walk you through a simple progression that you can do in order to build up the ability to balance on one leg for 60 seconds, which is really important. So let me move this chair to the side real quick, and I'll show you kind of how I would approach this. All right, so what we're going to do is figure out how to stand on one foot, and we're going to start with the foot just like we did. So spread the toes, activate the arch, grab the ground with the toes. Now we have a stable foot and a stable ankle. Now as we go to balance on that foot, what often happens when people go to balance on one foot is this. They lean to the side to find their balance. This is exaggerated, but you'd be surprised how many people just do this to find their balance, right? But when we do that, what's happening is we're actually putting torque on the knee, and we're not using the glute muscle, and so we're actually stretching the lower back into a position that is compromised in. So instead of leaning to the side to find our balance, what we do is this. Imagine if you had your fingers in your belly button. You can even do this. Sometimes giving us this proprioceptive cue is super helpful. And then one over your nose. Then all you do is this. Shift your weight to the side. So all we're doing is shifting our belly button over our foot while keeping our nose over our belly button. And that's what we want to do for single leg balance. So instead of us leaning to the side like this, we're shifting our weight, and we have a soft bend to the knee too. We find our balance, okay? Now from there, what I want you to do is this. If single leg balance is the move that you chose, here's a simple program for you. Start by putting 4 fingers on the chair or on the wall next to you and hold this position for 60 seconds. If you can't do 60, that's fine. You can start at 10, 20, whatever you feel comfortable with, but don't move on until you can hold this for 60 seconds on the left side and 60 seconds on the right side with all 4 fingers on a chair or on a wall for balance support. Now, once you can do that, all you got to do is this. Here, I'm going to show you from this angle. All you got to do is lift the pinky and then work up to 60 seconds. Maybe a week or two goes by, lift the ring finger, work up to 60 seconds. Then lift the middle finger, work up to 60 seconds. And then finally, the last one is going to be lifting the index finger and again, working up to 60 seconds with good alignment, balancing on one foot. This is such an important move. If you guys have aches and pains in your lower body, if you have weakness or you have flexibility restrictions, then just by balancing on one foot and learning how to do this well with good form, again, the foot being active, the hip and the body right over the toe, that's going to do so much for helping your body become more resilient and healing some of the aches, pains, and injuries that you have right now. Because those aches, pains, and injuries are not happening because of some random reason, right? It's either you got an acute injury and you started moving wrong, or you started moving wrong and you got an injury. Okay? And so what we're here to do is, regardless of your circumstances, even if you've had surgeries and things like that, it's teach you how to move your body better. Because when you move your body better, you feel better in your body. All right, we've done the foot, we've done the ankle, and we've brought it together into the single leg balance. And the goal again is 60 seconds left, 60 seconds right. One more thing about this, I love to use things that we do in our daily life to build habits. So we couple something that we don't do with something that we already do, and we can build a habit significantly easier. So one of the best ways to do this on the single leg balance drill is every time you brush your teeth, which I hope you do every night, for 1 minute, practice the balance on your left side, and for the other minute, practice your balance on the right side. A ton of our members at WeShape do this every single night, and they've reported so much improvement in their balance and their coordination, even the activity of their foot, reducing aches and pains in their knees, their hips, their lower back, etc., because you're doing something during something that you already do. So it's really easy to build a habit if all you do is put that timer there that you'd normally use for brushing your teeth, and during that timer, you practice standing on one foot for 60 seconds, and then the other side for the other 60 seconds. And then you brush your teeth, have nice pearly whites after 2 minutes, okay? So let's move on to the knee, shall we? Okay, let me ask a quick question before we move on. Are you guys enjoying this information? Yeah? Giving us a like? Yeah? Give us a thumbs up? Share it with a friend? So I'm going to talk about the knee. This is a point that I am really compassionate towards. And like I said, I've had 2 knee injuries. One when I was younger, getting hit by a car. One when I was doing gymnastics and blew my knee out when I got older. And now I've had, how many knee surgeries? It's 5 knee surgeries, right? I always forget now. It's 5 knee surgeries I've had, 4 on the right side. And so the first 3 did not work out. And the final one actually did work out, at least in replacing my ACL and giving me some more cushioning with a meniscus transplant as well. And man, it was a rough 10 years. And so when you have knee pain, it's really frustrating. But I'm here to tell you something interesting. When I moved my body wrong, I had a lot more knee pain. And when I learned the principles I'm about to share with you, I'm going to share with you guys 3 principles, right? Yeah, 3 principles that you need to know in order to make sure that your knees feel good, okay? And I've done this to a lot of people before who have knee pain, who when they stand up from a chair, they're like, oh, I got knee pain. And then immediately after I teach them this, boom, knee pain goes away. So let me dive into this knee pain here in a second. Okay, the 3 principles that you need to learn when we're talking about knee pain. Number 1, when we stand up from a chair, if we have knee pain, and we put our weight onto our toes, and we bring our knees forward over our toes like this, what we're doing is we're forcing the quad muscle to fire more, which can pull the knee joint together. And oftentimes when people have knee pain, they don't have enough strength inside that knee joint in order to be able to do this, all right? So the difference of this is when I use my hips to stand up, then my knee glides nice and smooth like this, okay? Nice and smooth, it glides in the joint. When I bring my knees over my toes and I don't have the strength or I have injuries in there, my knee goes, and it grinds together. It's more tight, right? And that can cause a lot more pain, and it can even wear down our meniscus at the same time. And so, number 1, when we stand up, we don't push our knees over our toes and try to extend through the knees. We're not doing this to stand up. We're not extending through the knees like this, right? Instead, keep the weight in the heel. Imagine that your shins are more vertical and then extend through the hips, okay? So the easiest way for you to think about this is imagine that I buried your shins in sand, okay? So you can't move your shins forward or backward. And you've got to figure out how to stand up without doing this, right? Without sliding the knees forward. Immediately, you'll notice that you have a natural tendency to use your glutes and your hips rather than use the muscles that surround your knee. So it's going to make the knee feel better. Okay, number 2, we already touched on it a little bit, but weight distribution on the feet. So if I bring my knees forward, I'm naturally going to be up on my toes. If my weight is forward on my toes, even if my knees aren't over my toes and I stand up and my weight's forward on my toes, I'm still going to use more of my quad muscles than I'd like, and I'm going to pull the kneecap down, I'm going to pull the joint together, and it's going to hurt worse. So what I like to use is this simple rule. Put 70% of the weight on your heels and 30% on the ball of your feet and split it between the outside where the pinky is and by the big toe right here. So how do we do this? When we're standing up from a chair, this is my favorite move, by the way, to work on things with knee pain, because standing up from a chair is such a critical movement, right? We all should be able to do this for as long as possible. So what you're gonna do is this. Put your feet on the ground. You're gonna start to notice a pattern here. Spread the toes, grip the ground with those toes, so we're activating the arches. So now we know we have active feet. Now we're gonna push our heels into the ground, knees are buried in sand, and we're gonna feel the weight mostly in our toes, and then 30% spread between both sides of the feet, and we're gonna stand up like that. Now immediately when we do this right, you're probably going to feel a lot more of the muscles here in your glutes, your hamstrings, doing this, extending the hips this way instead of standing up by extending the knee that way. That's a game changer when it comes down to feeling better in your knees and in your body, okay? Now the last and most important key to healthy knees is this. Your knee needs to go the same direction as your toes, all right? So see if you can find a mirror and a chair, and go ahead and put that chair in front of the mirror. And I want you just to do this. Don't think about it too much and just stand up from the chair. And I'll bet you anybody, almost anybody with knee pain is going to be making one of these 3 mistakes, and almost everybody with knee pain is going to be making this last one. What you'll notice is this. You'll stand up, and as you do, your knees will wobble in like this, right? And every time we wobble those knees in, we're taking a hinge joint, right? Coming back to the knee model here. A hinge joint, what's it supposed to do? It's supposed to hinge forward and backward, like this, okay? And what happens when we do this? We're putting twisting motion. We're making it go side to side. We're grinding down the sides of our meniscus right here. The knee is a hinge joint. Treat it like a hinge joint. This is such an important thing because when our knees cave in, it causes more pain and damage to our knees. Okay, this is the most important tip. So when we're standing up from a chair, look down at your thigh bone. Make sure it's going right out from the middle of your foot. And as you stand up and you activate your arches, you stand up, your weight's in your heels, look down and look for those wobbles in like this. And when you hit those wobbles, pause. Take a moment. You can even use your hands for support if you need to, right? On your thighs, on your knees, wherever, and slowly come up. And then on the way down, really slowly. And what you'll notice is This is what it's going to look like at first. Your knees are going to want to wobble in. It's going to shake from side to side. That's totally fine. We're waking up a lot of muscles that surround the thigh, that surround the knee, that surround the hip, that are going to support your lower body as you gain strength and coordination. That's going to make your lower body feel significantly better, okay? So those are the 3 keys to healthy knees. When we're doing any sort of lower body motion and we have aches and pains in our knees, we don't bring our knees over our toes and stand up that way. We're not doing a quad extension like this. Again, what I want to emphasize here is that's not a bad motion. That's a fantastic motion for building athletic strength once you've recovered from your knee pain. Once you're able to do basic motions like squatting in a wider stance with your weight in your heels, with your knees not going over your toes. Not a movement you should be doing first, okay? So don't put your knees over your toes. Weights on the heels. Don't forget about those arches and those toes like we talked about in the beginning. And then extend through the hips while making sure the knees are going the same direction as the toes, right? So we're extending through the hips to stand tall like this. Okay, now that we've gone through just the basics of healthy knees, we're gonna go over, this is a good one, how to create flexibility in the knees when we can't squat. So a lot of people, over time, we don't squat very deep. So we rarely do this in our society, right? We rarely sit down and just relax in the bottom of a squat, or we can just hang out here or our knees fully bent like this. And especially if we end up having knee injuries, a lot of times we lose this range of motion. So one of my favorite ways to gain this range of motion back is a movement called gapping the knee. It's a way for you to get support in between the knee right here that opens up the space in the knee and allows you to go with more range of motion while actually creating that support that causes a lot less aches and pains when you're doing this motion, okay? So here's how we're gonna do it. Again, starting on a kneeling position, similar to the ankle stretch, you take a towel and you roll it up and you put it behind your knee like this, and you bring that knee into the point where that towel's nice and sturdy in there, okay? Now, for a lot of people, when you have that loss of flexibility, you might come forward and go, oh, and it feels like compression inside the knee joint, okay? This is the movement for people like that. You put that towel behind the knees, it creates a little compression in there, and what you'll notice is, since there's support and it's pushing the tibia forward, this lower leg forward, you'll get more range of motion as you come forward. And so just like the ankle drill, you can play around with the angles, the position, you can come forward and backwards like this, creating that space, gap in the knee, 60 to 90 seconds, right? And then what you can do is test again, right? So you can start out by doing this. Start out by just sitting on the edge of the chair and how deep can I squat before my knee goes, oh, okay, that's as far as it goes. Then we gap the knee for 60 to 90 seconds. And again, you can do this sitting by just bending your leg like this and coming forward like that, right? So we're trying to create this space in the knee. And then once we've done that, test again and see how much more range of motion you have. It's not uncommon for people to gain several inches in depth on their ability to bend their knee or squat by gapping the knee. Okay, now I do want to give you guys one more tip for this just because a lot of people can't even do any of these things like squatting and things like that, and that's totally fine. So in that circumstance, what we can do is we can bring our knee up towards our chest like this, put the rolled towel behind it, grab onto our shin like this, and we can pull down like this, and we can walk our hand towards our shin and pull like this, okay? Now, another thing is if this is still too hard, you could put a washcloth in your hands over there and pull using the washcloth, so you don't have to have as much flexibility in your hamstring to do it that way. The goal is we're trying to create that range of motion while putting that support behind that knee to create space in the knee, and oftentimes this can be a great way for people to recover their range of motion and their ability to flex their knee all the way. Okay, what are we doing next? Now we're talking about the muscle that nobody strengthens that protects the knees. Okay, I like this one. This is really good. Okay, so we've talked about how to stand up from a chair and make sure that you have the 3 keys for healthy knees. And we've talked about how to create that flexibility and that low range of motion that a lot of people end up losing. All right, those are 2 fantastic movements for you. One thing about the knee joint is this. People think that the muscles here, the quads and the tibs that run up and down the front sides of your shins right here, they think that these muscles are supposed to do this, extend and bring the toes towards the nose. And that's what they do. But ultimately, these muscles are designed to decelerate motion, okay? So when you have strong quads and strong tibs, what that means is this. If I'm moving forward and I'm walking and I stop, those muscles can stop me. They can stop me without pain. They decelerate motion. If I'm running and I slow down, they decelerate motion. If I'm walking downstairs, this is a big one for most people with knee pain. If I take a step down the stairs and I start to go forward and I go, ah, and I have pain, that's because I don't have the strength to decelerate motion, okay? So right now I'm gonna show you one of the simplest moves that you can do to strengthen these muscles, the tibialis anterior on the front of your shins. Then I'm gonna show you how to activate your quads my favorite way, That way we can work the quads in a safe range of motion that's going to help the squat become stronger at the same time and still work on the glute at the same time, okay? So first the TIBs, okay? If you guys have trouble going downstairs or decelerating motion, this is a fantastic one. You can start by sitting at the edge of a chair. You point your toes down like this, okay? And all you're going to do is this. Lift your toes to your nose as much as possible, squeeze your quads, and lift those toes as much as possible until you feel all these muscles right here firing, okay? And you're just going to point your toes, pull, point your toes, pull, point your toes, pull, point your toes, pull. And you'll find that after about 60 to 90 seconds of this, you're going to get a pretty big pump in the front sides of your shins. Now, if this is too easy for you, you can do the same movement where you're leaning against a wall. So you'd stand up and you would just lean against a wall with your back with your feet about 12 inches from the wall, your legs straight. Same thing, point your toes, lift your toes to your nose, and just do it that way, all right? And just like the other progression, the calf rocks, you can also do this on one leg against a wall to make it significantly harder. Now, this movement is fantastic. If you have knee pain, I highly recommend you try doing tib curls for a few weeks every single day. It's going to strengthen these muscles, which are going to strengthen these muscles, and strengthen your ability to decelerate motion, which is often where people have knee pain. Again, going downstairs, stopping while walking, things like that, okay? Now, the next move, this one's going to be one you're going to want to pay close attention to if you have knee pain, because it's my favorite way to activate the quads, okay? And it really helps because you're activating the quads in a way that makes your body function similar to the top of a squat. And so we're going to activate the quads while also allowing the glutes to facilitate hip extension. And so it's going to help us get better at this motion, right? And again, this motion, one of the most fantastic and foundational movements you want to be able to do, okay? All right. So this one, again, I'm going to come to a kneeling position. I want to make sure that whenever you're in a kneeling position, especially if you have knee pain, that you have a nice soft surface below you. Okay, really important. Now in this position, what you're going to do is this. Imagine if I'm lunging straight forward like this. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to step my leg out to the side. It's going to be out 30 degrees, 90 degrees, something like that, right? So we want this for support. Now from there, and this is the most important part, look at my back foot. My toes are pointed straight down. My ankle's not to the side like this. Okay, my toes are pointed straight down, and I'm going to kick this foot into the ground. Okay, and I'm going to keep that foot kicked in the ground the whole time. So immediately, if I kick that foot in the ground, what I'll feel, my quad starts to fire. And my quad starts to fire, my leg starts to shake. I'm pushing that toe into the ground the entire time. Now from there, I'll use my hands in front of me for support. If I need to, I can have a chair next to me, a couch, something for support. And all I'm going to do is this. I'm going to drop my hips backwards, trying to bring my butt towards my back heel until I feel like I'm as much range of motion as I can handle. And then I'm going to push that toe into the ground, and I'm going to try to squeeze this glute. I'll get to the glute activation in a sec too here. And I'm going to extend the hips like this, okay? Now for some people, this is going to look like this. Just this much range of motion down, this much range of motion up, and their leg's going to be shaking the entire time, and it's going to be brutal. It's going to be absolutely brutal. That's totally fine. Over time, the goal is to increase the range of motion until we're able to get our butt almost all the way down to our heels, but in a way that's pain-free. So only go through a range of motion that's 100% pain-free. Okay, so if it's small, that's totally fine. And I got a cool tip for you. You'll see how we can put some of this stuff together. I can take that towel again. I can put it behind my knee like this. And I can do the same thing, the quad drill, and I can gap the knee for support to increase that range of motion while working on this quad activation drill at the same time. And the big thing again, remember to squeeze the glutes and extend the hip at the top. And remember to keep that toe pushed in the ground the entire time. Now what's great about this is your quad will start shaking. Woo! It'll get kind of crazy when you're doing this movement. When it's shaking like that, that means you're doing it properly. When it shakes like that, that means you're activating those muscles. And a huge part of what we do with WeShape and the workouts that we provide our members is teaching you how to start with a strong foundation. And that is muscle activation and range of motion. So flexibility and getting access to the right muscles. And then we start changing the movements, making them more difficult, adding more range of motion, more strength, more power, more flexibility over time. But these movements right here are foundational to making sure that you're activating the right muscles and building that mind-muscle connection. Because if you do squats and your quads shut off because you had a knee surgery all these years ago or some injury that caused that quad to shut off, well, guess what? You're going to have knee pain. You have to reactivate that muscle. You have to build the mind-muscle connection with your quad. You have to build that neural pathway to your quad muscle. And then once it's back, then all of a sudden you start to squat again and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know I was squatting without a quad for the last 10 years, right? And it'll absolutely change your life. Okay, so we went through the knees. We talked about the muscles to activate. We talked about how to get that range of motion in the knee. And then we also talked about the 3 principles for healthy knees. Now I'm gonna bring it together again. So this is all these bring it together sections. I'm going to try to build on each other. So that way, hopefully, by the end of this, we can start developing towards a movement that's one of my favorite movements for the lower body, okay? So we did this drill where we activate the arches, spread the toes, bring our center of gravity over our foot like this. Now what we're going to do differently about this drill this time is instead of staying nice and tall with a soft bend to the knee like this, what we're going to do instead of that is we're going to bend the knee slightly and hinge to the hip, okay? So I'm not up here like this. I'm going to bend the knee slightly and hinge to the hip. Make sure you guys can see that nice and clear. I'm going to go this angle over here. Bend the knee slightly and hinge to the hip. Same thing, belly button and nose. I'm in a slight front bend, and we're going to hold this position this time. So once we're able to activate the foot and the ankle, and we're able to find that balance up here, now we can say, can I do the same thing, starting with 4 fingers on a surface, and then going to 3, 2, 1, and then eventually 0, and hold this position with my quad activated, and hopefully feeling a little bit of glute activation here too. Okay? This is the motion that we want to build, because this is walking, this is running, this is going downstairs, right? And the more we're able to build the ability to hold this position right here with good arch activation, spreading of the toes, good balance, good strength through the quads while hinging through the hips, the better our lower body's going to feel, okay? So again, if you're just starting out, start with the foot, start with a single leg balance drill, but then once you start working on the quad activation and you're able to feel your quad firing, then you can take that single leg balance drill and bend through the knee a little bit. And you'll start to build that strength, and you'll start to build that range of motion in a movement that I'm building up to here by the end of this lower body masterclass. Okay, let's move on to the hips. Woo! I'm going to get a sip of water real quick. We've been talking for a good 45 minutes already. Thank you guys so much for sticking around so far. I hope that you guys are getting a ton out of this. If you are, give us a like, give us a heart, give us a thumbs up. We got a few more things to do. We're talking about the hips and the lower back. And then, like I said, if you have questions, post them in the comments below. We'll do our best to answer these questions once I'm done going through the whole series here. All right? Oh, we got a rose on TikTok. We got a diamond the other day, too. That was fun. All right, cool. Okay, hips. So hips, all right, so many people have tight hips, and while I could focus on a lot of different ways to stretch the hips, I'm gonna focus on 2 ways that almost everybody's tight in their hips. And usually it's either tight one way or the other. Sometimes it's tight both ways. But really, a lot of times when people think about stretching the hips, they think about doing like straddle stretches, you know, where your legs out wide like this, things like that. But really the biggest problem I see with the hips is hip internal rotation. That's the ability to rotate your hip inward like this and your foot outward like that, or hip external rotation, the opposite. Oftentimes, people really struggle with hip internal rotation or hip external rotation. So here's a simple rule for you. What you want to do is figure out how much internal rotation do you have and how much external rotation do you have. So while sitting in a chair, you can literally just take your foot to the outside and you could drop your knee down and you could look and see, how high is my knee away from the ground? Okay, yeah, it's about that high. Maybe it's about that height on my ankle here, okay? Now if I do the opposite and I open my knee up like this, how high is my knee away from the ground? Oh, it's maybe a little further on the outside, but not too bad. What we want is we want symmetry between our internal and external rotation. Now, some of the people watching this have just done this test and just discovered that they go, oh yeah, I can't do any internal rotation, or the opposite, right? It's really common for people to have an excessive muscle imbalance in their hip internal versus external rotation. So how do we stretch it? Well, if we're just beginning and we have really tight hips, then the stretches I just showed you to test this can be the stretches that you use. So simply doing this. Internally rotating your knee shouldn't hurt your knee. The big thing here is we're internally rotating from the bone. We're not driving the knee sideways. Remember, we're not breaking the hinge joint here. So internally rotating the knee. If you need to, you can even grab your thigh and turn it like this. And what you'll feel is a really strange stretch on the inside of your hip capsule right here. Now you can hold that position, and if you want, you can put a little pressure with your hands. And a way I like to stretch the hips, because they're hard to loosen up, is you can push up against your hand like this to fire that little muscle that you felt stretching. Push up and hold for about 10 seconds. Then take a big breath in, and then go, and as you relax, let the hip internally rotate. Again, making sure that there's no pain on the side of your knee, right? And we can just hold this position again, 60 to 90 seconds on that internal rotation, and then slowly come out of it. Ooh, that should feel really good on the hips once we're done with that. Make sure you match it on the other side, 60 to 90 seconds, okay? Then, if you have hip external rotation issues too, rotate your hip to the outside and put your hand on the knee like this and drive the knee towards the ground, okay? Now, for a lot of people, their internal rotation will be a lot less than their external rotation. So one of the things we can do is we can bring this down to the ground, okay? And if this is too low for you, you can get some pillows to sit on, or a cushion, or a very low chair to sit on, right? So how we can do this is this. We can stretch hip external rotation by bringing the leg to the outside like this and pushing down on it, right? Trying to get that external rotation. We can do the butterfly position. This is a great way to stretch hip external rotation. Or one of my favorite moves to get mobility and strength in both internal and external rotation is called the hip 90-90. So in this one, we're going to come into a 90-degree position. So I look down, 90 degrees here in my leg, 90 degrees here in my back leg, and you might be up like this, you might be leaning backwards, that's totally fine, right? And then what we're gonna do is this. We're gonna go from 90-90, and we're gonna rotate around to 90-90 on the other side, okay? And we're just gonna rotate back and forth, pausing at the end position. In the end position, if we wanna do more internal rotation, twist your body that way and bring your chest towards your thigh. If you want more internal rotation, push down on this leg and lean your body away, okay? And then what we want to work towards is, at first, you need your hands behind your back. As you do this, you might have to sit on a pillow. Then you take the pillow out, and eventually we can slowly work towards bringing our hands in front of us and being able to do the hip 90-90s like this without even needing our hands behind us for support. That's when we know we have good hip internal and external rotation, which is enough hip internal and external rotation to be able to do anything that you want to do in your daily life while feeling really good in the process, okay? So those are my two favorite ways to stretch the hips. Picking a way to stretch the internal and external rotation of the hips is fantastic for really opening the hips up in the ways that most people are tight in them. If we don't have internal, external rotation of the hips, then our knees are more susceptible to pain, and we end up moving through the joints above and below the hips, right? So the hips are really loose. They're supposed to be really flexible, but if they don't rotate like this, then I'm gonna move through the knee, and the knee's not supposed to move like that. Or I'm gonna move through the pelvis, and that's gonna give me SI joint pain or lower back pain. Okay, so we gotta get flexible hips in this internal, external rotation. One more for you. If that external rotation didn't work for you, I'll just show you another one of my favorites real quick, is putting your foot on top of the chair like this, okay? Bring your knee to the outside, and then just bow forward from the hips, and imagine bringing your chest towards your foot like this, okay? And then right there, you're just gonna breathe and relax and try to bring your body closer to your foot. And then eventually over time, you can either try to bring your head to your foot. I know this is an advanced stretcher here, or you could bring your foot to a higher surface, like the back of a chair like this, and then bringing your chest towards that. What a fantastic way to stretch the outsides of your hips and that hip external rotation. So that's another great one. For some of you who are more flexible, maybe you're hypermobile, being able to do those stretches can be fantastic for the external rotation. Okay, now let's talk about activating your glutes, okay? We've talked about activating your quads, your tibs. We've talked about stabilizing your arches, your ankles. So we've kind of worked our way up to here. But now let's focus on the glute. I'm going to show you my single favorite glute activation drill, and it's something that anybody should be able to do, even if you're a complete beginner. It's really a great way to practice glute activation. So this one, I want you to do this one on a couch, in bed, on a nice comfy carpet. Don't do it on the hard floors or anything like that. So we're going to come down to a position on our belly. I'm in an extension like this. That's only so I can talk to you. You guys can just relax your heads down like this if you need to. In this position, what you're going to do is this. You're going to curl your heel towards the sky like this. You're going to push your pelvis into the ground. So the biggest mistake people make is they curl their heel up, and as they curl their heel up, their butt goes up like this, and they arch their lower back. That's putting pressure on the lower back. It's a pretty good sign you have what's called anterior pelvic tilt. We'll get to that in a second, okay? So instead, push your pelvis in the ground, and then from there, keep the pelvis pushed in, and try to lift the knee of the bent leg off the ground for just a second. And what you'll feel is the muscles of your glutes are going to fire like crazy when you're doing this. Hold for a few seconds, and then relax. And then again, push your pelvis in, lift the knee up, hold for a few seconds, and then relax. If you need to test it too, you can take your thumb, and you can push it down on your butt right here, and then you can lift your knee off the ground, and you can feel the butt muscle firing. So all we're doing for this movement is we're learning how to properly activate our glutes. Most people who have knee pain or pain in their lower back do not know how to use their glutes. You don't have good mind-muscle connection to your glute muscles. That's you, then this drill right here should be one of the drills that you focus on. 60 to 90 seconds on the left, 60 to 90 seconds on the right. Do that every single day so you start feeling what it feels like to activate your glutes. Now, once you're able to squeeze both of your glute muscles, you feel like you have good control. You can squeeze that muscle till it almost feels like it's going to cramp. Well, then we can flip it over, and we can turn it around on our back, and we can do the same motion. So you see when I'm lying on my back, what am I doing? I'm extending the hip, right? I'm bringing my knee back to facilitate glute activation. Now in this position, I'm going to come into a lying position in a bridge position, bring my heels underneath my butt, make sure my feet are straight forward, my knees are going the same direction as the toes. I'm going to bring my palms toward the sky. A lot of people do this palms down, but that rolls the shoulder in, which encourages bad posture. So we want to go palms up, fingertips away from ears, okay? From there, toes to the nose, so lift the toes up, and then press your heels into the ground and squeeze the glute muscles to extend the position, okay? And practice here, you can test your glute muscles. Are you squeezing them? Squeeze them, and then come back down. This is a really good way to practice that mind-muscle connection and build glute strength and strength in your back and your core for protecting your lower back. So we're kind of bridging the gap now between hips and lower back. So activating the glutes, one of the best ways to protect the lower back. So if you have a weak glutes and weak lower back, practice these two drills together, and you can start building that glute strength that's going to support the lower back, and it's going to support all the other movements we talked about right here. I'll show you how to wrap that together here in just a sec, okay? So that's the hips right there. We talked about internal, external rotation, and we talked about how to activate your glutes and your core to help strengthen the glutes and protect the lower back. Last step we're going to do here today is we're going to go over the lower back, but first we're going to bring together the knee, the ankle, and the hips all at the same time, okay? So how we're going to do this is with a single leg balance drill. So we've already done the single leg balance drill where our body is standing on one foot, right? So we've done this one, standing on one foot. Then we've done this one where we bend the knee a little bit. Now what we're going to do for this one is this. I'm going to do it in front of the chair today. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to hinge to the hips, and I'm going to try to hold this position, okay, on one foot. Now, if this is too hard for you, put that foot down. So again, I want to emphasize something here. This is a progression. What I'm doing now is, say you spend a month on your foot, and then you got your balance down. Then you spend a month on your knee, now you got your ability to do this. Now you spend a month on activating your glutes, now we're moving to here. This isn't like I'm doing this tomorrow, okay? So this is a great video to save, come back to over and over again, because you can slowly work through this progression to really build the strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination you need to fix your lower body and make it feel amazing, okay? So again, hinge to the hips. This back leg can be used for support like this, and then boom, we're gonna hold it like this position right here, okay? Ideally pushing through that back heel. And you're gonna have all 10 fingers this time on the chair, and the progression looks like this. We're gonna start with 10 fingers, we're gonna lift our thumbs. And then if you can hold it for 60 seconds on each side, then we're gonna lift our pinkies, just like before. Then our rings, then our middles, then the last one is our index fingers. And we're gonna practice being able to hold this position, which is going to make your glute muscles fire like crazy. Now, a couple notes in this position. When you're here, a lot of people have a tendency to open their hips up. When we're here, we wanna make sure our hips are parallel to the ground. They're not twisted out like this. Okay, so parallel to the ground. The second thing is a lot of people have the tendency to drop a hip, meaning they're dropping their hip like this. Instead, we want to focus on closing the gap here, so lifting our hip towards our shoulder so our body is still in one position. Basically, from our pelvis to our rib cage stays aligned, and our hips stay parallel to the ground the entire time as we're holding this bottom position. But this is one of my absolute favorite drills for strengthening the glute muscles that are gonna protect your lower back and your lower body. It's literally just absolutely stunning drill. So if you've activated your glutes, your feet, your quads and everything, and you've worked up to this, then you can start working on this. So again, don't pick everything and do it all at once. As you're watching this video, we're picking like 1 to 3 things that you're gonna do consistently. For everybody who's watching this right now, we're gonna share the replay of this video, especially for all the people who registered for the live lower body masterclass, which by the way, did you guys know we had like 4,000 people register for this? Had so many people register and so many people attending right now. It's just been an amazing experience so far. So let's go to the lower back, okay? I wanna talk about first why people have lower back pain, all right? But first I'm gonna take a quick sip of water. There are 2 common reasons that people have lower back pain. The first one is called a kyphotic posture, and the second one is called a lordotic posture, okay? So from a side angle, what I mean is this. Kyphotic posture is rounded back, tight hamstrings, and when we round our back like this, we put pressure on the vertebrae right here because it's always trying to hold us up, right? This is the classic, I'm hunchback, my glutes aren't active, right? My hamstrings are tight. This is a classic posture that people go through that ends up with lower back pain. And also, when we do that, when we go down, if our hamstrings are tight, when we go to pick stuff up, we round our back like this, and we lift through our lower back, and it causes aches, pains, and injuries in the lower back, okay? The second posture is lordotic. Lordotic looks like this. It's butt back like this, and it's a little bit of a sway back, okay? This one's also known as anterior pelvic tilt. This one's a little different. So instead of having tight hamstrings and weak glutes, typically you might have strong glutes, but tight hip flexors. And you might also have aches and pains in your neck because your neck is usually pulled back like this in this position, okay? So depending on where you're at, if you are lordotic, then one of the most important things you can do for your lower back pain is stretch your hamstrings, okay? I'm gonna show you my favorite hamstring stretch. This one is so simple. People always ask me for more hamstring stretches and I say no, because all you need is this one if you wanna have loose hamstrings, okay? So take a towel, put it next to your bed. Roll that towel up, put it over the ball of your foot. This is really important. Don't put it over the arch of your foot like this, right? Put it over the ball of your foot by the toes, okay? From there, straighten your leg. Your towel can be nice and long, right? It doesn't have to be short like mine. And then the first thing you do before you pull your leg up is pull your toes towards your nose. You can even use that muscle in the front of your shin to pull your toes to your nose. Now relax your body and take some big breaths and enjoy, right? As you exhale, try to pull your leg towards you more and just relax. Now, when we're doing a deep stretch like this, we're not trying to go to 100%. 100% means muscle tension, and muscle tension doesn't mean flexibility, okay? So instead, we want to go to like 80, 85%, breathe and relax until that becomes like 70%, and then pull a little bit more. And just repeat that process. 60 to 90 seconds on the left, 60 to 90 seconds on the right. If you have that kyphotic posture, if you have that kind of hunchback posture like this, okay, and we stretch our hamstrings, well, the hamstrings get looser, we get taller, and if we couple that with the glute activation that we just went over for the hips, now all of a sudden, when we're walking, we're not extending through our lumbar spine and our hamstrings, we're extending through our glute muscles, and we're fully stretching the hamstrings with every step that we take. So stretching the hamstrings and activating the glutes and the core, really important for the lower back. Now, if you have the opposite posture, right, the anterior pelvic tilt like this, then it's quite likely that you have tight hip flexors. And this is getting more and more common over time because what happens? We sit, okay? When we sit, what happens to our hip flexors? They get short. And then we stand up, and our hip flexors are still short, and they pull our pelvis into this position. And if our pelvis is in this position, well, it's pinching down on our discs, it's pinching down on our nerves, and it's bringing SI joint pain, lower back pain. It's making us a lot more susceptible to those things. So how do we stretch our hip flexors? One of two ways. First, I'll do standing because it's a little bit easier for most people. So you can do this. One step forward like you're in a lunge. Here, turn your pelvis forward. Tilt your tailbone towards the ground. This is the biggest mistake people make when stretching the hip flexors, is instead of turning their pelvis towards the ground like this, they'll stretch their hip flexor, and as they go, you'll see from a side angle, they'll just continue to arch their back more. So all I'm doing here is just staying in a bad position and moving my body forward. What I want is this. I want my pelvis to tuck under, okay? Pelvis to tuck under. That way I can feel the stretch deeply in the front of the hip flexors right here, okay? Now, same thing, holding this position for 30 to 60 seconds. Big breath in, and as you do that, imagine length, 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 length through the backside of that foot, or that leg, right? And hold, and then breathe and relax, and every time you breathe, creating that length, okay? Now, what's great about the standing hip flexor stretch is you can literally do this like you're waiting in line at the bank, and you're like, I know I got tight hip flexors. Boom, I'm stretching my hip flexors, right? Okay, you're at your kid's baseball game. Boom, I'm stretching my hip flexors, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing, right? There's so many opportunities throughout the day to move your body a little bit. And you know, at WeShape, we call these movement snacks, right? Instead of, you know, you need a little energy, so you eat a little food snack. Well, maybe your body needs a little movement. You do a little movement snatch, bam, stretch your hip flexors, okay? So this is fantastic. The more often we do this, and the more often we activate the glutes, which are also gonna help this posture, the more it's gonna bring our body into that middle position right there. Okay, I got one more for you on the lower body, and then we're gonna bring it together, okay, or on the lower back rather. Why people end up hurting their lower back is often because they hinge through the hips wrong, and it's because they don't activate their core, okay? So I've just showed you how to stretch your hip flexors, stretch your hamstrings, activate your glutes, which should all help with the lower back. But if you don't know how to activate your core properly, which is something that most people don't teach very well, then you're gonna suffer from lower back pain. So I'm gonna introduce to you a type of core activation that most people haven't heard of. It's called the elevator, okay? I'm gonna actually teach us in a lying position today because I feel like that'll give us a chance for you to see it a lot more, what I'm actually doing. So in the past, if you've ever gone to a workout class or a Pilates class especially, you've heard people say what when they say activate your core? They say what? Draw your belly button towards your spine like this, okay? Now, while that does activate these deep core muscles that can stabilize the spine, it neglects activating all of the muscles of the core at the same time. And so here's the deal. If I told you that I was going to drop a bowling ball on your stomach right here, would you suck your belly in naturally? You might think you should, but that's not the best way to activate your core. How you activate your core is this. You would press your stomach out and press your lower back into the ground. That would actually activate all the muscles of your core. This is called abdominal bracing, but I like to teach it in a move called the elevator. Why is it called the elevator? Check this out. Here's the people. They go on your belly like this, right? And here's the elevator. And we lift the people up with the elevator. So here's how it works. You can take your belly button right here and the top of your hip crease right here, take your two fingers and poke it right in between those areas. Usually there's a nice soft spot right there in between your rectus abdominis and your obliques, okay? Find the same spot on the other side. Now from there, what you're gonna do is take a big breath in, push your lower back into the ground, so I'm pressing my lower back down into the ground, and lift the people in the elevator. Now at first what's gonna happen is this, okay? This is a frustrating movement. This is a neurological drill. You're building your mind-muscle connection with all the muscles of your core. And at first you're gonna be like, this is a waste of my time. But here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna lift the fingers up, using a big breath, and then you're not going to be able to take a breath. You're going to go, and then the moment you exhale, your fingers are going to go back in like this. That's totally fine to start. So what we want to do is start there, and then we want to be able to take a big breath in, push the fingers out, and then take little sips of air. Little in, little out, while maintaining those fingers being pushed out. And over time, we want to be able to expand on that by being able to talk, by being able to take full inhale, full exhale, while maintaining those fingers being pushed out. When we can have a conversation with those fingers being pushed out the entire time, then we'll know we've mastered this drill. Now, why is this so important? Well, what they found was when we activate our core using abdominal bracing or using the elevator, it creates intra-abdominal pressure. It stabilizes the core by firing all the muscles that run around the core, as well as the pelvic floor and the diaphragm. And what this does is it makes your pelvis and your spine become one piece, okay? Now, that's leading me to the second reason why most people end up with lower back pain. When we go to move through the hips, we bend forward like this, and what happens? What we should be doing is this. If I brace, then my pelvis and my spine are one piece, okay? My spine is here, my pelvis is here. There's no movement inside where the spine meets the pelvis, the SI joint, right? It just moves in one piece. If I don't brace properly, then I go like this. And I move through my back and I round my back and I go to pick something up and, oh man, I have SI joint pain, my back hurts, right? Whatever it may be, okay? So this is what we're gonna work on next. We're gonna work on getting that bracing feeling in the core, right? And this time, we're gonna work on activating the arches, pushing the butt back, feeling the glutes activated, just like we were working on with the glute activation drills, right? And then making sure the knees are going the same direction as toes, hinging forward through the hips, and then coming forward with a flat back. The moment we feel those hamstrings get real tight, remember we stretch the hamstrings too, then we're going to round to the back. Don't do it, right? So get to the tight hamstrings, and then this time, drive into the heels, squeeze the glute muscles by imagining you're extending the hips like in the bridge, right? Or the glute activation drill. Extend the hips and stand tall. By practicing this one motion, the frog deadlift, right? I call it the frog deadlift. We're learning how to pick stuff up and put stuff down with good form. Something that most people weren't taught or were taught in some way like, oh, you're supposed to keep your back vertical. That's not how it works. That's not how your body works. You're supposed to be able to hinge to the hips, keeping the weight in the heels and using your glutes primarily to extend the hips to an upright position. And so what you can do is this. Over time, you can start working and you can measure, okay, I can touch like, the tops of my shins. And then maybe a week later, you're like, oh, I'm going to try to touch like the middle of my shins. And then maybe I'm going to try to touch above my ankles, my toes, the floor. And you can keep bending your knees too as you come down. The goal eventually is to be able to come all the way down to the floor with a flat back in this position. That means you can do pretty much anything you want, including pick stuff up in a way that protects your body, fixes your lower body, protects your lower back, and makes your body feel good. Now I'm going to bring everything together, you guys, and then we're going to do a Q&A session right now, okay? And remember, we are going to share this video recording, so I just gave so much information about the foot, the ankle, the knee, the hip, the back, and all kinds of movements to create strength, flexibility, stability, build that mind-muscle connection. They're going to help you fix your lower body. But finally, I want to wrap this thing up. So you'll see why we put this all together the way we did right now. We started with the foot. We started with the arch activation, right? We started with learning the toes. Then we started with making sure the ankle's stable and it can handle this kind of side-to-side movement. Then we focused on the knee, making sure that the knee is going over the toes, making sure that when we find our single leg balance, we're able to balance over the foot like this. Then we bent through the knee like this, right? And we started working on the quad activation and the ability to hold this position, which as we described is a position in running and jumping and going downstairs, things like that. Then we started working through this position, being able to hold that hip hinge position. What's that look like, you guys? Yeah, it looks just the same as this. So this is a great movement to start warming up to do this one as well. Now what we're going to do is the final movement, which is my favorite lower body drill. Why it's my favorite, and I pretty much have always done this with any client I've ever worked with, it's one of the moves that I use to rehabilitate my own knees and really give me the awareness of how to move well in my body so that my knees felt significantly better after all those injuries. It's called the drinking bird, and it's just like it sounds. You remember those little things on the desk where the little bird goes forward and backward in one piece? We call it the drinking bird because what we want is we want everything to move in one piece, okay? So it looks like this. Activate the arch. You can go hands on the hips. At first, you're going to need support for the chairs, but I'll show you the eventual goal for the movement, right? Hinge to the knee a little bit. Foot comes off the ground, and we're going to hinge to the hips like this, slow and controlled, down to this position with the knee soft bent, good balance. Then we're going to squeeze the glute, and we're going to extend the hips, and we're going to come to that full standing position that we worked on first, where we're finding that single leg balance. Now, if you're able to slowly work through these drills to activate these muscles, build your balance, build your coordination, and be able to do a single leg deadlift like this, it's pretty rare to meet someone who can do a really good drinking bird, right, with good form that has pain in their knees, their lower back, their hips, or their ankles, because it is a self-corrective movement. You can't do it right unless you're doing it right, okay? Otherwise, you'll fall down, you'll twist, you'll notice it, right? So again, this is a progression, you guys. We started with just giving you range of motion and flexibility, building mind-muscle connection. Then we started moving it into more movements, like the knee movements, like the squatting, teaching you how to move your body a little bit better. Then we started teaching you how to activate your muscles of your core, your glutes, how to hinge through the hips properly so you can protect your lower back, and then wrapping it all together into a movement that we can all aspire towards, that drinking bird movement, right? And again, you don't have to be able to do that the first time. We could start with, staggered squat and just doing it with both feet on the ground and building balance this way. And then slowly bringing the foot back and tapping the toe and standing up like this. And then eventually being able to do the full movement like this with good form. But again, if I were to pick one movement for the lower body, unquestionably, if I were to pick one movement for the lower body, I would pick drinking bird for everybody out there, especially people who had aches, pains, injuries, or flexibility restrictions in their lower body. So, woo! What did you guys think of all the stuff that we taught in the lower body masterclass, right? I hope you guys enjoyed this lower body fix masterclass. I'm gonna drink some water here in a second, and we're gonna jump into a little bit of Q&A, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Hopefully we can answer some of the questions you guys had throughout this video. Now, if you're still watching right now, I just wanna say thank you so much. I mean, we've been going for over an hour and 10 minutes now, talking about all the areas of the body and the moves that we've been able to create to help you feel better in your lower body. One thing I wanna tell you is at WeShape, what we've done is we've created a system that helps create personalized at-home workouts for people. So if you're finishing this right now and you're scratching your head, you're going like, this is great information. I like you, Coach Tyler. I trust you. I believe that you guys have what we need to be able to make my body feel significantly better, but you're not really sure where to start because this is a lot of information. Well, you got one of two choices. One, you can come back and watch this video and you can pick 1 to 3 of the movements that you think are appropriate for you and you can start doing them every day. And if you're confused about that, start at the foot and work your way up, right? And slowly build that ability to work through that progression I went through this whole thing. And if you still want more than that, and you want to try something different, well, again, at WeShape, what we've done is we've built a software that uses a programming framework that I worked with our team to build. And what it does is build personalized at-home workouts for you. Now, these are at-home workouts that you can do anytime, anywhere. They don't require any equipment at all. It's just a floor and a chair. That's all you need to do these workouts. And every movement in your workout is personalized to you based on your goals and your capabilities. Okay, so what does that mean? That means if you have a bunch of injuries in your lower body and you can barely stand up from a chair like this, we're gonna be primarily working on flexibility and muscle activation. But we'll slowly progress you over time in your workouts to be able to give you more strength and range of motion, working towards something more challenging, eventually working up to something like I just showed you at the end, the single leg deadlift, or as I like to call it, the drinking bird, okay? So all of our workouts work in this fashion. They start at mind-muscle connection and flexibility, then they work towards more range of motion, a little bit more strength, then more stability, balance, coordination, etc. This is what I found is the best way to exercise if your goal is to feel better in your body. Because remember this, every other workout program out there is telling you you need to do their workout because you should change the way you look, right? You should pump your muscles and burn calories so you can change the way you look. Well, guess what? We used to help people transform the way their bodies looked. And even if they transformed their bodies, they were still miserable because that's not what it's about. What it's about is your quality of life, right? So if you can fast forward 10 years and ask yourself this question, maybe it's 20 years or 30 years, ask yourself this question: what's most important to me? Is it changing the way I look so I can get external validation because the world pressures me to feel that way? Or is it changing the way I feel with my body, developing a relationship with my body so that when I move throughout the world, I feel good? Because at the end of the day, if you've ever been injured or if you've ever suffered from aches, pains, and injuries for any amount of time, you would trade anything to get rid of those things, okay? So remember to show up for your workouts as an act of self-care, show up for your workouts for you. And if you want to try a WeShape workout, we've got a special deal for you guys right now. If you're watching, there's probably a link in the comments above or below. You can go click the links in our bios. We're offering people who watch this live call 65% off any of our WeShape plans. This is the biggest discount we've ever done. So if you guys want to check that out, go click the link in our bio, click the links right here, or if you want to, you can just type in WeShape.com/lower body, and you can claim your 65% off deal. Again, we would be creating follow-along workouts for you. They're 30 minutes or less, and you can feel results in 2 workouts per week. You can do live Q&A calls. They're like this, but we're actually live. I can see you face-to-face on a Zoom call. ask me questions directly. I can help make sure you have good form on all the movements. You can tailor the workouts even more. We have an amazing community for support as well, and a team of other coaches as well. So it's an amazing workout system that if you have aches, pains, and injuries, flexibility restrictions, I highly recommend you check it out. And right now you can save 65% off. Click the link down there, head on over to our bio, or type in WeShape.com/lower body. All right, you guys, let's do some Q&A. Thank you guys for sticking around. Like I said, we're gonna go for about 15 minutes on Q&A, and I'll try to go quick so I can get as many as I possibly can. Okay. From Kathy, I have pins in my toes on the right foot. I can't bend them. Any suggestions? So whenever our body has any sort of restrictions, okay, we have to work within what it can actually do. So if there's anything that we can't do because of an ache, pain, or an injury, in fact, I was just on a coaching call before this one with our members, and one of our members couldn't bend their leg all the way, right? And we said, okay, well, forget it. If you can't bend it all the way, you can't bend it all the way. So one of the most important things you can do is work around it. Do the things you can do, and try not to focus on the things that you can't do. Because if we focus on the things that we can't do, we're just gonna get frustrated for no reason. We can't do them. We have to just swallow that pill, and we have to move forward. At the end of the day, there's probably a lot of other things that you could do in this video, especially when it comes to the balance and coordination stuff that I showed, like standing on one foot, that if you can't bend your toes all the way, are still gonna help your foot become more active and create more stability in the lower body. So work around our injuries, you guys, as best as we can. One of the things I like to say to our members is motion is lotion, right? And that means the more we move, the better our bodies feel, especially if we're mindful about how to move our bodies. All right. Barbara, can you debunk the don't ever let your knees go past your toes rule? Why was I taught this a long time ago? Thank you. This is a great one. So a lot of people in the health and fitness space started saying, don't let your knees go over your toes. And this is really great advice, like I shared earlier, when we have aches, pains, and injuries in our knees. So if we come forward over our toes like this, then what we're using is quad muscles to facilitate that movement. And if I have weak quad muscles, or if I have inflexible knees, arthritis in my knees, or anything like that, it's gonna cause a lot of pain. So what we need to do is this. First, we need to restore range of motion in our knees. If I can squat all the way down like this, where my knees aren't going way far over my toes, right? Then I'm gonna be able to do this with healthy knees and I have full range of motion. Then, if I wanna continue to strengthen my knees and pursue more challenging athletic activities, I could elevate my heels and I could do the same motion, and my knees are gonna be more over my toes, and I'm gonna be demanding more quad movement, okay? Or activation. If that happens, I'm building a lot of quad strength, which is fantastic for athletic activities, but horrible for people with knee injuries who don't have full range of motion yet. So again, first things first, full range of motion. Second thing, start slowly working towards knees over toes, and eventually we can do crazy stuff, where we for example, here's a weird one. You can be able to, go through full range of motion in the knees and be able to come back again. Stuff like that. Really fantastic moves for strengthening the knees. Again, those are advanced moves, but believe it or not, in our WeShape workouts, we do take you from beginner movements all the way up to movements like that in our workouts, okay? It takes time, and hopefully you don't go too far too fast, but anything. Okay, Theotis, if we lift our heels in the squat, is that okay? Okay, so this is something I want to avoid. I want to avoid lifting the heels in the squat. So if we're coming down in the squat or standing like this, and we notice we start to lift our heels up, you know what that's a sign of? Tight ankles. So we go back to that ankle drill that we did at the beginning, and we start working that ankle mobility by bringing the knees forward over the toes. Now, if you want to build ankle mobility for the squat, and your heels are lifting up, one of the ways to do it is you can put a little block under your heels. So you could take a pair of books or a piece of plywood that's like 1 inch, and you could do some squats with your heels on top of that. We want to have something for support. We want to have something for support underneath the heels. That way we don't end up putting all the pressure on the balls of our feet. Because even if our ankles are tight and our heels are pushed down, then we still have a lot of stability through the hip. If we're risen up on our toes like this, then we're demanding a lot from our knees, okay? All right, okay. Christina, right IT band going downhill always hurts. This is a good one, and I have a bet, okay? My bet is this. If you're going downhill, if you're going downhill and your right IT band hurts, what's likely happening is that IT band is going into a range of motion that's beyond what it should be going into. Or you're using this IT band, a band of tissue rather than muscles, to stabilize your knee. In either case, what's likely happening is this. You're probably really weak in this range of motion, this external rotation range of motion inside your leg. What's happening is you're probably going down the stairs or whatever, your knee's probably coming in like this, and in order to try and stabilize through the knee, you're probably doing this motion with your body, not this motion with your body, right? You're not externally rotating the hip, you're abducting your leg away from your body. So what you can practice is this. you know, you can go to step down the stairs. I'll use a block. This is a cool way to practice getting stronger for going down the stairs, is just getting a block or some books. Stand on that step like this, right? And as we go down the step, we bring our foot out in front like this. And as we come down, look at the knee, make sure it's going straight forward to the toes, right? And tap the heel and come back up. And this can be a tiny range of motion. And the big thing you want to feel here is this. You want to feel the muscles on the outside of your hip and your glutes firing. If you feel the muscles here working, then again, you're doing this too much. And likely if you look in a mirror, you're probably walking like this a little bit. You're probably coming down the stairs, and every time you do it, either your knee's caving in or your body's leaning sideways. So if you bring your belly button over your nose and your belly button over your foot, and then we bring the foot forward like this, and we don't let that lean happen, we let that, keep that knee pushed out, we're gonna start activating the quad, not overusing the IT band, activating the glute and the hip external rotators, and that's gonna help us learn how to go down the stairs in a way that actually feels good on our body. So give that a shot. And one other thing I wanted to say here is oftentimes when people's IT band hurts like that, if my hypothesis is correct that your knee's caving in or you're pushing out through your leg to facilitate that motion, and then you go foam roll your IT band, which is something that a lot of people do, what you're doing is lengthening the IT band when it's already too long. So we want to be cautious about body work. We don't want to just do foam rolling when something hurts, because it might be hurting because it's in too long of a position, not because it's in too short of a position, okay? So just a quick tip for anybody who's listening who's been told to roll their IT band, okay? Let's see, what else we got? Woo! Okay, cannot sit for a long period of time. My butt, glutes burn and ache, lower leg muscles, and a lot of loss of muscle mass. Please assist, okay? So first of all, I'm gonna just talk about the movement that we should all be practicing. I already went over this, but sit to stands, you guys. Sitting to standing. And if we need to use our hands for support, if we need to have some poles or some chairs or use some straps, whatever we need to for support, that's fantastic. But the more we practice this motion, the longer we'll maintain it. Okay, I want you guys to know something. This is really important. If you were to guess what one physical attribute was highest correlated to longevity, would you guys guess? Flexibility, strength, or cardiovascular capacity? Okay? Comment. Let us know in the comments real quick. I'll wait. We'll go do. Okay. A lot of people think it's cardio capacity because we think it's their heart. It's not cardio capacity. Then we go, oh, it's probably flexibility because we get so tight as we age. It's not flexibility. It's strength. Okay? Because think about it. If you can't stand up from a chair, if this is really hard for you, that requires strength more than flexibility and cardiovascular capacity. And once we're unable to stand up and walk, then we fundamentally lost the ability to move. When we lose the ability to move, we lose the ability to move blood through our body more efficiently and to move lymph, which is like the trash system of the body, more efficiently, okay? Moving all the toxic stuff out of our body more efficiently. And so the more we do this motion, sitting to standing, the longer we maintain it. So if you get nothing from this and all you do is say, hey, every time I go to stand up from a chair, I'm really mindful about those 3 rules you shared with me, right? And I'm gonna do it 3 times before I go for my steps, that's gonna help build that strength too. Okay, so that's fantastic. And when you're sitting in a chair, oftentimes when people have pain in a chair, it's because they have that posture we talked about, right? Where we have that rounded back. So one of the things we can practice in a chair is we can practice this, getting all the way up on our sit bones, okay? Coming all the way up on the hamstrings as much as possible, get up on the sit bones, and then when we sit, there's a nice little bit of an arch in that lower back. It shouldn't feel like we're sitting on the top of our tailbone, because then we're pinching our SI joint and we're hurting our lower back. Instead, it should feel like nice tall posture, should feel easy, should feel like you're sitting on the tops of your hamstrings. Try that out, and everybody, make sure you sit to stand and build that strength if longevity is your highest value. And if you're watching this and longevity is not your highest value, you should make it your highest value, okay? Okay, let's do a few more questions, you guys. I know this has already gone an hour and 23 minutes, so again, I so appreciate everybody staying on this. Again, if you guys are confused, you want to do more Q&A calls in a much smaller group setting. Usually our Q&A calls are 10, 15, 20 people, where I can answer your questions directly. You can try WeShape right now for 65% off. That's going to get you follow-along workouts that we've created for you, where every movement is personalized to you in the same way that we talked about here to help build that mind-muscle connection, flexibility, strength, balance, coordination that will help you feel better in your body. You can click the link in the comments below, maybe pinned down there. Head on over to our bios. You can click that link, or you can go to WeShape.com/lower body if you want to check that out. 65% off any of our plans right now, okay? Okay. Ooh, this is a great one. Is there any exercises for your foot arch when laying on your back? This is a really, really good question, okay? Because we did this drill with the paper, if you watched from the beginning, where I kind of scrunched the paper with my foot. So here's what I would say about this. It's really hard to develop the kinesthetic awareness of what it feels like to activate your arch without some sort of external feedback, okay? If I just say activate your arch, very rarely is somebody gonna be able to go, oh yeah, just like flex my foot like that, right? So it's important that if you wanna learn how to activate your arch, I would highly recommend starting with a piece of paper, activating your arch that way, and building that awareness. And then from there, what you can do is lay down in bed, your foot's up in bed, and then do the same thing. Activate the arch, put the toes down. Okay, activate the arch, put the toes down. And you can start feeling that. You know, believe it or not, we can build mind-muscle connections with every single muscle in our body. Over 600 muscles in our body we can build mind-muscle connections with. And the better those connections are, and the more mindful we are of those connections and what muscles need to be used to facilitate which movements, the better our body's gonna feel. And the longer we're gonna be able to move our body freely in space in a way that feels good, okay? All right, I'm gonna do 2 more questions, you guys, and then we're gonna wrap this one up. Okay, I have knee pain inside when walking up hills. My hips hurt too. So first of all, again, everything in this series, if you slowly work from the foot all the way to the knee, all the stuff we talked about, if you do it slowly but surely, it's gonna help you with this. And alternatively, and I know we're talking about this a lot, if you try our We-Shape workouts, they're designed to give you the same type of progressive format that we just went over, and that could help you as well in a way that's a little bit easier for you because we've done kind of the heavy lifting on building a program for you. But if you're going up and down and you're having issues with your knee, again, watch those principles. If you're going up, right, and you look down, is your knee going like this on every step? Are you going whoop, wobbling in like that? I'll bet you anything your knee's going like this. I'll bet you it's wobbling in on every single step, okay? So be mindful of that. And how we can do that, again, we put a book in front of us and we practice. Put our foot down. Slowly activate that arch. Grip the ground with the toes. Bring the knee forward, the shin still vertical. Hinge forward through the hips. Drive through the heel. And slowly practice standing up to that tall position, right? I know it seems so remedial. We all want to get on the treadmill and hammer away the miles and pump on a Peloton and do all this stuff, right, that the people think is the best way to exercise. But I promise you, if you pump on a bicycle, a fixed bicycle for 10 hours a week, all it's going to do is make you sweat a lot. And it's probably going to strengthen your legs, but if you have bad movement patterns, it can still end up hurting you, and it's probably going to give you bad posture and a weak core, okay? So you have to practice moving your body, because when you move your body better, you feel better in your body. And so simple stuff, when you're going upstairs and it hurts, it's time to start learning how your body works and feels, because there's a way that you're going to do this where your arch is activated, your toes are gripping, your knees are over your toes, your weight's in your heels, you're hinging through the hips, your glutes active, your core is active, and then all of a sudden, whoa, I just did it and didn't hurt anymore. And that's what's beautiful about learning how to move your body better, especially when you have aches, pains, and injuries. I'm gonna say this last thing, I'm gonna answer one more question, we're gonna wrap this up. If you have aches or pains in your body, you have a guru living inside of you, all right? You see, in the beginning of this, I told you I had pretty bad injuries in my knees. I've had 5 knee surgeries, and I had to make a choice at one point. And am I gonna let this be the moment that defines me, and I can walk through the rest of my life saying, oh, well, I can't do that because I broke my knee. I can't do that. Or am I going to say, wait a second, I don't have to do this for the rest of my life. I can choose a different path. I can lean into learning how my body's supposed to move. I can really pay attention to how my body feels when I'm moving. I can build the mind-muscle connections I need, and slowly but surely, if I go slow enough, not too much too fast, which is what most people do, if I go slow enough, I can build my body back to doing things that most people can't dream of doing. And I promise you, if you're consistent, and you use a good methodology, you can get there, okay? So don't make this a curse. Don't make this your story. Don't blame your pain for the rest of your life. It doesn't have to be that way, okay? All right, one more. Whew. Okay, Vicky, is We-Shape for people with bone-on-bone knee pain with a good meniscus? Well, first of all, let me tell you, congratulations on the good meniscus, because I had bone-on-bone knee pain with a flat meniscus and it was downright miserable. So here's the thing. When we learn to move our bodies better, we feel better in our bodies. I know I've said that over and over again, but one of the things that we do with our We-Shape workouts is all the cues I keep telling you about. Make sure your knee goes the same direction as your toes. Make sure the weight's in your heels 70% and 30% across your feet. Make sure your arch is active. Make sure your core is active. Make sure you're breathing this way. We integrate that into our workouts. We're not sitting there yelling at you, come on, pump it out one more, because that's not our goal. We're not trying to do no pain, no gain. We have a different philosophy here. It's pain, comma, no gain, right? So instead of thinking of that old way of doing things, we have to think of a new way to do things. And the new way to do things is movement. It's not exercise. It's mindful moving, not mindless exercise. And so if you have aches, pains, and injuries, what we've done with We-Shape is we've designed a workout program where literally the bottom level of the movements, the beginner level, our level ones, are things that people can do from bed who can't even sit up from bed. So if you have bone-on-bone knee pain, we're gonna work on activating your quads, activating your glutes, working on your upper body mobility while laying in bed. And then we're gonna slowly build from there, slowly building more strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination by slowly increasing the difficulty of the movements in your workouts over time as you're more and more consistent. And what that does for you is it not only teaches you to move your body better, but it will increase your strength, your flexibility, your balance, and coordination. And guess what happens when you work on all 4 of those attributes at the same time? Well, you feel better in your lower body. Actually, you feel better in your whole body. All right, you guys, I'm gonna wrap it up right there. Thank you so much for joining the Lower Body Live Masterclass, the Lower Body Fix Masterclass Live. It was really fun to sit here for an hour and a half with all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining. I'm like so appreciative that we still have a lot of people watching right now. It's just been such a wonderful event. I really hope that you got something away from this, regardless of whether you decide to try WeShape or not. Hopefully you found a movement that felt right for you, that would help you just do something to care for your body and make your lower body feel significantly better. And if you feel compelled right now to try WeShape out, again, you can try out any of our plans for 65% off. Click the link pinned in the comments, in the description. Head on over to our profile, click that link there, or you can go to WeShape.com/lower body. You can save 65% off WeShape. Otherwise, I hope you guys continue working towards moving your body better so you can feel better in your body. All right? Thanks for watching, everybody.